Chapter 1140. When Fenglin's complexion and spirits were much better than before. He had tied up his hair and put on his glasses. He looked no different from his usual self. He had a clean demeanor and a warm smile. When Fenglin replied, "I'm much better. Thank you, Mississippi. How is Ming?" Lily recalled how Ming had been trembling with his back turned to her. Her heart ached and her eyes burned. She nodded her head and replied, "He's fine." She looked up at Huajin and his wife and said, "Uncle and Auntie, Ming wishes to be discharged from the hospital and return home to recuperate." "Oh." Qiao Ziqing panicked. "How can he do that? His injuries are serious. The doctors and nurses in the hospital have to take care of him at all times. If he stays at home, what if something happens?" "That won't happen." Lily shook her head. Her eyelids drooped. She was in low spirits. "Actually, the most important factor in recuperating is one's mood. There are too many restrictions in the hospital. I wish to bring him home to recuperate. Perhaps." As she spoke, her eyes reddened even more. She looked up and smiled. "Didn't the doctor say that Ming's eyes might recover at any time? If we cheer him up, he might recover even faster." Judging from the way Lily spoke and the tone of her voice, it was clear that she had treated Ming as one of her own. That tone of voice made Qiao Ziqing very unhappy. But it was undeniable that what Lily had said made sense. Huajin nodded his head and said, "All right. In that case, come to our house. Miss you if it's possible. I hope that you can move in with us. Our son likes you very much and is very reliant on you. Is that all right?" Although Huajin's words were a question, his tone didn't imply it at all. When Qiao Ziqing heard that, she immediately replied, "Don't worry. We'll pay you, Auntie." Lily's words were almost forced out of her mouth. She clenched her fists and said, "I think you might have misunderstood. I want to be with Ming because I like him. I'm willing to be with him. Similarly, it doesn't matter if he's blind or disabled. I'll take care of him. To put it bluntly, if he dies in a car accident, I'll die with him." Huaqing felt that Qiao Ziqing's words were hurtful, but she hadn't expected Lily to say them. Live and die together? Huaqing found it hard to believe. As for Qiao Ziqing, she found it extremely laughable. How long has it been since they started talking about life and death? Although Qiao Ziqing had such thoughts in her heart, she did not voice them out. When Lily saw the expression on Qiao Ziqing's face, she could guess what was going on. Lily felt a little angry, but at this critical juncture, she couldn't lose her temper. Looking at Qiao Ziqing, she forced a smile and said, "The reason is simple. I love him, I want to marry him, I want to be with him, that's all." "Miss you?" Huajin was just about to speak up for Qiao Ziqing when Lily interrupted him. "Uncle, I've conveyed the message. I agree with Ming's suggestion. I'll be discharged first and recuperate. That's more important than anything else. I'll be leaving first. Goodbye, Uncle Wen." When Fenglin smiled and nodded his head. "Goodbye." Chapter 1141. The more Qiao Ziqing thought about it, the angrier she got. She muttered to herself, "If she becomes a member of the family, this little bit of remuneration will be nothing." Qiao Ziqing crossed her arms as she watched Lily leave. "This kind of woman is too scheming. Our son has been fooled by her." When Huajin heard that, he looked at his wife helplessly. At the same time, he felt a headache coming on. He said, Xiao, don't think so badly of human nature. That girl isn't the kind of person you think she is." "How do you know?" Qiao Ziqing turned her head and looked at him with displeasure. "You don't know? That kind of girl is what the internet calls a green tea bitch. She knows how to act and has tricks up her sleeve. She's ambitious and seduces many men with her beauty. Lao, don't tell me you've been attracted to her as well?" Huajin was exasperated. "You're not allowed to watch television next time. If I catch you, I'll smash the television. You're not allowed to browse Weibo or use your phone either. I'll smash it every time you watch it." Qiao Ziqing pouted. She hugged Huajin's arm and said, "Why? It's not my fault. I'm just saying it in front of you. I won't say it in front of her. Xiao, that girl might not be as bad as you think she is. You can try to understand her. I talked to her briefly today, and I realized that she has an extraordinary temperament." Huajin looked at his wife helplessly. "Don't think too badly of human nature." "Don't think too well of human nature either," Qiao Ziqing retorted. "It's always good to be on your guard." When Fenglin listened to the conversation between the couple and chuckled. The two dimples on his face made him look especially amiable. He said, "I think what Oldo said is right. This young lady has a kind heart." Qiao Ziqing was displeased. She asked unhappily, Why are all of you speaking up for her? You know Ming's situation very well, Wen Fenglin said. It's rare to have such a girl by his side. Besides, Xiao likes this girl. As elders, we should do what's best for our children. No matter what, we have to make Ming feel better first. We can talk about the rest later. When Fenglin looked at Xiao Ziqing with the same helplessness in his eyes. Xiao, you haven't changed at all. You always like to think the worst of people. Xiao Ziqing didn't say a word, but it was obvious that she was unhappy. She retorted, this is called nipping the problem in the bud. When Fenglin smiled and didn't say another word. He subconsciously glanced at the door, and there was a faint meaning in the depths of his eyes. When Lily returned to Ming's ward, she found that he was still in the same position. She gently walked up to him and walked around him. Ming was already asleep, breathing evenly. His head was wrapped in gauze and only his face was exposed. Lily sat in front of him and looked at his sleeping face. She reached out to tuck him in. Just as she was about to remove her hand, Ming raised his hand and gently placed it on hers. Without opening his eyes, Ming asked, what was the result? I don't know. Lily gently pulled her hand back. I didn't wait for their reply before I came back. Did my mom scold you again? No. However, it was even worse than being scolded. Chapter 1142. Ming didn't ask any more questions. He reached out and gently placed his hand on hers. Today is the second day of the new year, right? Yeah. It was indeed the second day of the new year. It was supposed to be a day for family reunion. For an orphan without a home, it was no different from any other day. It must be very lively outside. I was going to take you to Kingstown Tower to play, but I can't go now. Ming felt a little regretful. It's okay. If I can't make it this year, I'll go next year. There will always be time. Ming felt even more regretful. It wasn't as simple as just going there to play. He had originally planned to propose. At the busiest time of the year, it would become the most anticipated proposal ceremony. When the Bureau of Civil Affairs was back at work, he would go and get the marriage certificate. But it was impossible to realize now. He couldn't see anything with his eyes. He couldn't even see her face. What right did he have to promise her a future? His heart ached a little. He released Lily's hand with his uninjured hand and was about to prop himself up to sit up. Lily quickly helped him up and said, slow down. Ming's movements were the same, but with Lily's help, it was much easier. He sat up straight and lifted the blanket. He put his legs down and said, take me out for a walk. Sure, Lily replied. Wait a moment. She turned around and picked up the coat hanging on the coat rack. She helped Ming put it on and said, I'll help you put it on. Raise your hand. Ming raised his hand and put it through the sleeves. When he finally put the coat on, Lily looked at his lower body. The hospital gown was a little thin. Would it be cold to just wear it like that? I'll find you a pair of pants. Lily turned around to open the closet. Ming didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He asked, are my pants dirty? It's windy outside. I'm afraid of the cold. It's okay. Let's go. My body isn't that bad. Ming stood up and tugged at his clothes. Hold my hand. Lily thought about it and agreed. Ming's pants weren't that thick. Along the way the wind grew stronger and stronger. Lily took him to the hospital garden where children were playing. At the same time, the elderly and the hospitalized disabled were walking and chatting in the park. She helped him to a quiet and secluded bench to sit down. The wind today was a little strong and chilly. Not far to the left there was a little girl who looked about 3 or 4 years old. She was wearing a pink jumpsuit and looked round. She was holding a doll in her hands and ran to the right. Her laughter was a little shrill, but her smile was bright and lively. She shouted, I'm your big sister, you can't chase me. Right behind that little girl, another little girl wearing the same clothes caught up and shouted, I'm the elder sister, you're the younger sister. Wait for me. The little girl was out of breath. When she got closer, Lily realized that they looked exactly the same. Twins? Ming asked. Twin girls about 3 or 4 years old. Lily was surprised and turned to look at Ming. How did you know? Chapter 1143. Lily's heart skipped a beat when she heard that. The wound that had already been buried deep was dug up again, caught off guard. Their hands were still held together. If Lily moved a little, Ming could clearly feel the change in her movements. With a smile, Ming said, it would be better if it were 2 girls. Ming? Yeah. I'm sorry. Lily felt a little sad and tightened her grip on his hand. I should have told you at the time. Those two children can't be kept, can they? Ming gently held her hand and said, "It's a pity that they were my first child. In the future you have to be pregnant with at least triplets to make up for this sin." Hearing the words triplets, Lily chuckled and scolded, "Do you think I'm a pig? Then let's have 3. The first will be a girl, the second will be a boy, and the third will be twins." "That makes 4, Lily said. "Well then let's have 4. Anyway, the more the better. I don't want to have so many children. I heard that giving birth is very painful." "The pain will be over soon. Just treat it as a needle prick. It's not that simple. You are indeed a straight man. Do you know how painful it is to give birth?" "You know? I don't want to know. It doesn't matter. Those women must have exaggerated the pain. It shouldn't be that painful. There's no smoke without fire. If it wasn't true, how could they be so sure? It's used to deceive men." Ming's tone was very certain. Lily glared at him and growled, "Straight man. Yeah, I'm a straight man. If I'm not straight, I'm gay." Ming smiled and gently pulled her closer. He whispered in her ear, "Don't worry. I will be a straight man for the rest of my life. I will want to sleep with you anytime, anywhere." Lily was angry. She pointed her finger at his cheek and said in a low voice, "You are not only a straight man, but you are also a pervert. You are a big pervert. How can you say that about your man? You are challenging the authority of a straight man." With a straight face, Ming moved closer to Lily's face and said, "The consequences will be severe, little you. Mr. O, this is a hospital. Otherwise, do you think you can still sit still?" Ming lowered his voice slightly, and the last syllable was so low and charming that it made people's hearts skip a beat. When Lily heard that, she pushed his face away and said, "You're injured to this extent, and you're still trying to act like a hooligan. You're so dedicated." "That's easy." Ming leaned closer and kissed her on the cheek. "A hooligan doesn't forget his nature. That's a good character." Just as Lily was about to retort, she found that the 2 little girls who had just run past them were running towards them. Lily's cheeks were slightly hot as she said, "There are children coming. Be careful of your image." The 2 twin girls giggled and chased each other. The 2 little fellows tossed the plush toy around, full of energy and youth. Ming let go of Lily and listened to the sound of the children playing. His mood improved a lot. The atmosphere in the park was peaceful and beautiful. However, one of the 2 little girls who were running around happily suddenly stopped running. She stopped and her complexion became worse and worse. The one in front stopped, turned around and shouted, "Sister!" Chapter 1144. The 2 children fell to the ground one after another. Their faces were pale without warning. It seemed that the 2 children were still trembling, and beads of sweat appeared on their foreheads. Lily was shocked and said to Ming, "The 2 children don't seem to be feeling well. I'll go take a look." "Okay." Lily quickly walked forward. At the same time, a woman who looked to be in her 30s shouted, "Nana, Lily." As he shouted, he had already run over to the 2 little girls. Lily stopped in her tracks and looked at them. The woman's eyes were red with anxiety. She looked up at Lily and pleaded, "Miss, can you help me? My daughters have congenital diabetes. I have to send them to get insulin immediately." Lily quickly walked forward and said, "Didn't you give them the insulin in advance? Quick, I'll help you carry one. Let's go together." The woman quickly nodded her head. She picked up one of the children and ran forward. Lily helped carry one of the children and followed the woman to bring the children inside. Ming listened to Lily's footsteps and voices fade away. He sat on the bench alone, feeling a little uneasy. With his hands on his legs, Ming sat where he was and listened to the children playing around and the voices of the elderly talking. His mood wasn't as good as it had been before. It turned out that the same scene was a different feeling without that person. The 2 children were sent to the emergency room. The mother of the children was so anxious that she spun around in circles. Lily comforted her and said, "It's okay. Don't be too nervous. The children are blessed by heaven. They'll be fine." Originally, the mother of the children had been relatively calm. When she heard Lily's words, she immediately burst into tears and choked out, "It's all my fault. I shouldn't have given birth to them. Otherwise they wouldn't have to suffer like this." Lily was annoyed. She suddenly felt that the mother of the children was a little hateful. She didn't want to comfort her and said, "You can't say that. It's a blessing to have children by our side. Science is so advanced now. Even diabetes can be treated. You don't know. Back then their father didn't allow me to give birth. They came without any warning. During the few days I was pregnant with them, I took birth control pills." Lily was stunned when she heard that. She asked, This is the after effect? The woman nodded with tears in her eyes. Today I brought them to the hospital to visit my father and to give them insulin. Who knew I would forget the time? It's all my fault. Lily patted her on the shoulder and said, "It'll be fine." Other than that, Lily found herself at a loss for words. It turned out that the consequences were so serious. After about 10 minutes, the child was declared safe and sound. Lily and the child's mother breathed a sigh of relief. After saying goodbye to her, Lily returned to the place where she had just been. Oming was still in the same place. He hadn't left or moved. Lily walked up to him and gently placed her hand on his arm. "I'm back." "Yes." Oming's expression was obviously relaxed. He held her hand and asked softly, "How is it?" "The children are fine." He looked at the time and said, "It's already dinner time. Are you hungry?" Chapter 11:45. That night, Qiao Ziqing and Huijin completed his discharge procedures. When Lily and Ming were picked up, it was already past 9 p.m. However, it wasn't the villa in Xishan, nor was it Ming's apartment. It was Huijin and Qiao Ziqing's home. The house was huge, even bigger than the villa in Xishan. It was even bigger than Ming's own apartment. This was according to Qiao Ziqing's wishes. Firstly, it was convenient to take care of the family. Secondly, it was the new year. They couldn't stay out all the time. Although they were injured, they still had to maintain the atmosphere of the new year. Considering that Ming couldn't leave Lily, Qiao Ziqing cleaned up a guest room and let him stay in. Ming hadn't showered in the past few days. He didn't even change his clothes. His mental state was much better than it had been 2 days ago. As soon as they got home, Qiao Ziqing personally went to the kitchen to cook. After Lily accompanied Ming back to his room, Ming gave her a gentle push and said, "My mom is going to cook. You go help in the kitchen." Is he asking me to ride on his coattails? Lily felt a little strange, but she knew it was only right. Apart from her relationship with Ming, she was a guest in the household. She couldn't possibly expect the host to serve her well, could she? There was nothing wrong with having some self-awareness. Lily walked to the kitchen and volunteered to help Qiao Ziqing wash the vegetables and cut the meat. After she walked in, she didn't say a word. Qiao Ziqing glanced at her and didn't say anything. She lowered her head and continued with her work. After the ingredients were processed, Lily took the initiative to boil a pot of water. She placed it on the gas stove and turned on the fire. "Do you know how to cook?" Qiao Ziqing asked from behind. Her voice was emotionless. However, Lily could clearly hear a hint of disdain in his voice. She didn't know if it was an illusion or if it was real, but she was already used to it. Even if it was real, it didn't matter. Nodding her head, Lily continued, "In the past, Ming didn't like to eat breakfast. Sometimes he would even have lunch casually. He would often have stomach pains in the middle of the night, so I learned a few tricks." "When did you start learning?" Qiao Ziqing was behind Lily, so she couldn't see her expression. This time, Qiao Ziqing's words were a lot calmer. Lily couldn't guess what she meant by that. Lily was a little scared, but she didn't dare look back. She replied, "About 6 or 7 years ago. After I learned how to cook for him, I cooked for him for a long time. It shouldn't be too bad." Qiao Ziqing stopped talking and looked at Lily's back. She had a whole new level of respect for the girl. Could it be that this girl knew how to cook for her son? At least he knew how to behave. He knew to come to help and to show off. Although Qiao Ziqing knew her motive, she didn't feel as disgusted as before. Perhaps it was because of old Wen and old O's words in the afternoon. "Alright, I'll go buy some fruits. If you can do it, you can do it." Qiao Ziqing didn't stay any longer. She turned around and walked out. Lily didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This woman is really rude. But, did this mean that he had started to change his opinion of her? Chapter 11:46. When Lily finished cooking the first dish and covered it, Qiao Ziqing returned with the fruits. Qiao Ziqing was washing the fruits at the back, and Lily was cooking the soup. Neither of them spoke. The atmosphere wasn't awkward or tense, which was beyond Lily's expectations. When the dishes were ready, Lily brought them out and called out, "Auntie, can you ask Uncle to come out for dinner? I'll bring Ming out." Qiao Ziqing didn't respond or make a sound. She just sat on the sofa. Lily knew that Qiao Ziqing had a problem with her, so she didn't wait for her response and went into the room. When Ming heard the sound, he knew that she was back. He asked, "How is it?" "It's time to eat. Let's go." "Did you make it?" Ming could hear the nervousness in his voice. His uninjured hand was holding Lily. His palm was sweating. Lily smiled and gently patted his hand to comfort him. "Yes, She replied. Yes. Did my mother say anything? She said that if I could do it, she would do it for me. She went to buy the fruits. When he heard that, Ming's tense mood immediately relaxed. With a chuckle, he lowered his voice and said, My mother is used to living a carefree life. She hates cooking. If it weren't for the holidays and the servants going home early, she probably wouldn't cook. More importantly, Qiao Ziqing's cooking was terrible. But Ming couldn't reveal his mother's secret. I see, Ming said. It was no wonder that Qiao Ziqing didn't stand on ceremony and let Yu Lili take over. But this was also an opening for her to change Qiao Ziqing's opinion of her. She had to do this more often in the future. She led Ming to the dining room. Huajin and Qiao Ziqing were already seated. When he saw them, Huajin said, You're here. Yeah. Yu Lili responded and pulled out the stool opposite Qiao Ziqing. After Ming sat down, she went to wash her hands and took a wet napkin to wipe his hands. It was a small detail that Qiao Ziqing and Huajin noticed. The couple picked up their chopsticks almost at the same time. Huajin said, Let's eat. It's a little late today, so don't eat too much. We'll take a walk later before going back to the room. Of course she was referring to Ming. Yu Lili nodded her head naturally. She didn't think there was anything wrong with it and replied, Okay. Qiao Ziqing poured a bowl of soup for Ming and then lowered her head to eat. Ming's left hand was injured, but his right hand could still hold things by itself. Yu Lili placed the bowl of soup in his hand and whispered, Be careful. It's a little hot. Don't spill it. Ming finished the soup in a few gulps. Did you make eggplant? I want to eat eggplant. All right. Qiao Ziqing took a bite of food and subconsciously looked at Huajin. Qiao Ziqing noticed that her husband looked equally surprised, so she lowered her head. I didn't expect it to taste so good. Compared to what she did, it was still a little lacking. Yu Lili didn't notice the subtle changes in their expressions. She was too embarrassed to take the food and didn't dare speak. Even when she spoke to Ming, she kept her voice low. Would such a wealthy family be very cautious about the rules of not talking during meals or sleeping? Chapter 1147. Yu Lili obediently fed Ming and ate a little at the same time. Huajin and Qiao Ziqing were both full. Qiao Ziqing wanted to come over and ask Yu Lili to eat, but Yu Lili politely declined. After the meal was finally over, Yu Lili led Ming to the sofa to sit down. After cleaning up the dishes, she turned around and took Ming out for a walk. It was late and the wind was strong. Huajin and Qiao Ziqing lived in a villa that was rarely seen in the city. The surrounding area was bustling, and there were many people walking around at this hour. It wasn't quiet. After walking around with Yu Lili, Ming felt a little sleepy. He hadn't slept well for the past few days. Dark circles had formed under his eyes. When he heard Yu Lili yawn, Ming said, Let's go back. Okay. However, there was no lack of neighbors who knew Ming. A middle-aged man about the same age as Huajin saw Ming and walked up to him in surprise. Shao? When Ming heard the voice, he recognized the person who was speaking. He called out, Uncle Zhao. When Uncle Zhao heard Ming's response, he finally dared to walk up and yelled, I thought I got the wrong person. I heard that you were in a car accident recently. I didn't expect you to be so badly hurt. Uncle Zhao shook his head and walked up to Ming. Oh, what's wrong with your eyes? If there was one thing that Ming was most concerned about and regretful about during this trip, it would be his eyes. Yu Lili was afraid that he was in a bad mood, so she quickly pulled him over and said, Ming is injured. He can't see for the time being, but it's not a big problem. When Yu Lili said that, Uncle Zhao finally noticed her. When he saw her face, he felt very comfortable and asked, You are? She is my fiancée. She's here to take care of me, Ming said. Fiancé? Yu Lili couldn't help but look up at him when she heard those three completely unfamiliar words. Her heart suddenly raced. Even if she had 10 hearts, she would never have expected Ming to say that. Fiancé? Only when both parties' parents agree and they are engaged can they be called fiancés. What kind of fiancé is that? But, in front of an outsider, in front of an elder, Ming actually said such words which made Yu Lili feel a little happy in the bottom of her heart. Had this man already started to take action? Uncle Zhao was also a smart person. Of course he recognized Shin Manting. Her face and figure were completely different from Shin Manting's. But when he heard this, he didn't say anything. He nodded and said, So that's how it is. Yes, I'll invite you to my wedding. Although his eyes were empty, he seemed to be in good spirits. He said, Uncle Zhao, if there's nothing else, we'll leave first. Okay. Uncle Zhao responded and then watched them leave. However, as he watched them leave, he seemed to be deep in thought. What the hell? Isn't that fella's mistress? How did she become my fiancée? After bringing Ming back, Xiao Ziqing and Huijin were both sitting in the living room in their pajamas. Seeing that they had returned, Xiao Ziqing immediately came up to them and said, "Why are you so late? You have to pay attention to your rest. Next time don't come back so late." Chapter 1148. That won't do. How can you shower now? The doctor said that your wound hasn't healed yet. It's already very difficult to discharge you. Don't be stubborn. Xiao Ziqing nagged. She had already pushed Yu Lily aside and was helping her son up the stairs. Yu Lily followed behind and heard Ming say, "It's fine. Lily can help me clean myself. Mom, don't worry about me. Go to sleep." Xiao Ziqing seemed to disagree. She turned her back to Yu Lily and had no intention of avoiding her words. "She's a lady cleaning your body. What's that? No matter how good your relationship with her is, she's still an outsider. Can't you be more understanding?" Outsider. She was indeed an outsider, but Yu Lily still didn't feel comfortable being called out so loudly. "She's my woman. How is she an outsider?" Ming retorted. "Mom, don't worry about it." With that, he raised his voice and said, "Yu Lily, come here." Yu Lily quickly walked over to Ming's side and said, "I'm here. Take me upstairs. After I shower we'll sleep." "I'll do it." Xiao Ziqing held onto Ming's hand and refused to let go. She looked at Yu Lily with displeasure and said, "Although you have a close relationship, you're still an unmarried couple. What's the point of sleeping in the same room in your own house? Your room will be for your wife to live in the future. How can you let anyone else sleep in it?" Yu Lily wasn't stupid. She knew that Ming's mother was hinting at her. To put it more plainly, she was pointing out that Yu Lily would never marry Ming, so she couldn't sleep in Ming's room. She should give up on that idea. Even Yu Lily understood, and Ming was even more aware of it. Awkward, Yu Lily felt that her current situation was as if she had stuck herself to it. That feeling made Yu Lily feel disgusted. Her heart tightened and she spoke first. "Auntie, Ming, I didn't intend to stay here. I didn't even bring a change of clothes. I'll go back now." When she said that, it was Xiao Ziqing's turn to be embarrassed. Why did it sound like Xiao Ziqing was chasing her away? She just didn't want this woman to hang out with her son. Especially in her own home, Xiao Ziqing felt extremely uncomfortable at the thought of her son being involved with such a woman. But she hadn't thought of letting Yu Lily go. After all, she was the one who invited her to stay over and she even prepared a guest room for her. However, Xiao Ziqing could not bring herself to explain herself. Due to her personality, Xiao Ziqing was not one to speak softly. Seeing her son's face darken, Xiao Ziqing felt guilty. Ming looked a little lonely. He didn't say anything. He shook off Xiao Ziqing's hand and climbed up the stairs. It was better for him to leave. He didn't have to listen to his mother's words here, and he didn't have to come here to be humiliated. Let's go, let's go." Ming pursed his lips. Chapter 1150. The old lady looked cautious and asked, "Lily, are you angry?" When Yu Lily saw the old lady's expression, the anger and impatience in her heart immediately dissipated. Looking at the old lady, Yu Lily felt helpless and said, "Old Mrs. Shen, you're getting on in years. It's better for you to stay at home. If anything happens, not only will you suffer, but your children and grandchildren will also be worried about you." "Are you worried about me?" Old Mrs. Shen's eyes were wide open. Her eyes were a little cloudy, but at that moment, they were filled with childish anticipation. Yu Lily didn't know what to say for a moment. In all honesty, she was only worried that the old lady would cling to her again. If she couldn't leave even if she scolded her, it would be troublesome. But who knew that the old lady would really take advantage of her? It was as if the old lady knew that Yu Lily wouldn't be able to handle her. That made Yu Lily angry and helpless. The old lady had come all the way to find her. She couldn't really scold her. When Shinjilya saw the helpless look on Yu Lily's face, he quickly tried to smooth things over and said, "That's right. Grandma, Lily is just concerned about you. I told you not to run around. I knew that Lily would be upset." Yu Lily said. When she heard Shinjilya's voice, Yu Lily laughed in anger. Without any explanation, she slapped him on the arm and shouted, "Why didn't you tell me that you were coming?" If he had told her, she would have gone into hiding. This old lady was too annoying. "Grandma said that it would be a surprise for you." Shinjilya hugged his arm and took a deep breath. "You hit me too hard. Didn't you know how to be gentler?" When Yu Lily heard that, she was so angry that she slapped him again. "Fine. I'll be gentler. Gentler. Gentler." Every word was like a heavy slap to the face. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Shinjilia quickly dodged and hid behind the old lady. But in the end he still felt guilty. He had been pestered by the old lady, which was why he had come to look for her. It's your fault for not answering my calls or video calls. Grandma misses you so much that she talks about you every day. As Shinjilia spoke, he looked at Lily's face. His eyes darkened as he slowly said, "And I also want to see you." When Lily heard the last sentence, she lost all her confidence. Shinjilia seemed to have been dumped by her, right? "I'm so hungry. Shall we go eat?" Old Mrs. Shin acted as if she hadn't seen or heard their interaction. She touched her belly and said, "Old people can't stand hunger. Once they're hungry, they feel uncomfortable all over. Lily, let the youngest treat us to dinner." As she spoke, she came over and held Lily's hand affectionately. "After dinner, let's go to the movies and go shopping, shall we?" Shinjilia felt his hair stand on end. Why did it feel a little horrifying coming from the old lady's mouth? Chapter 1152. Shinjilia sympathized with Lily in his heart. When he turned his head and saw the expectant look on old Mrs. Shin's face, he suddenly felt a little strange. Could it be that Grandma has been lonely for so many years, and she wants to have a twilight romance with Lily? Is it really okay for an old cow to bite on young grass? Furthermore, both of them are women. Shinjilia suddenly felt a chill run down his spine, and his whole body trembled. What a pervert. Old Mrs. Shin had no idea what her grandson thought of her. All she could think about was what was going to happen that night. When Lily got into the taxi, she called Ming. Ming hung up the phone and didn't pick it up. Lily was stunned and dialed again. The second call was answered. Ming picked up the phone and said, "I accidentally pressed the button just now." Lily understood and changed the subject. "Have you eaten yet?" "No, I'm waiting for you to eat with me." "Where are you?" Ming's voice was low and his tone was dependent. "Did you just wake up?" "Yeah, I accidentally overslept. I'm in the car now and I'll be there soon." After thinking for a moment, she asked, "Did you shower last night?" "No." "Did you wipe yourself?" "No." "Why?" "I couldn't wring the towel out." Ming's words carried a hint of grievance. Lily smiled at his pitiful words and asked, "Your mother didn't help you?" "I'm already an adult and I still need my mother to help me shower." "What do I look like? Aren't you ashamed to let me shower?" Lily was clearly not convinced. "You're my woman. It's different." The words came out naturally. Lily's heart fluttered and her lips curved up. "I'll hang up first. I'm almost there." "Okay." The car stopped very quickly. Lily paid the driver and got out. After she rang the doorbell, Qiao Ziqing opened the door. When she saw that it was Lily, Qiao Ziqing quietly let out a sigh of relief and rebuked, "Why are you only here now? What time is it?" Lily was a little unhappy when she heard that tone, but she pretended not to hear it. She called out, "Auntie." With that, she walked straight up the stairs. "Wait a minute. Have you eaten?" Qiao Ziqing asked. Lily stopped and turned her head to look at him. Qiao Ziqing came out of the kitchen with a tray and said, "Ming hasn't eaten yet. He's waiting for you to eat together, so I prepared food for two." "Thank you, Auntie." Lily took it and headed upstairs. Qiao Ziqing had intended to say more, but seeing Lily in front of her, she had no choice but to swallow the words that were on the tip of her tongue. She felt a little dissatisfied. The door to Ming's room was open. Ming was sitting on the sofa next to the bed. In front of him was a table with a computer and a mobile phone. As soon as he entered, he heard the sound of the computer reading. Chapter 1153. Lily blinked her eyes. She suddenly recalled Qiao Ziqing's hesitant expression earlier. So this was what he wanted to say? "However, but I don't want to." She placed the tray on a nearby table and said, "Ming, when your hand gets better, I won't be coming anymore." "What? Your mother hates me." She had also made it clear last night that she could not accept Lily. Instead of facing her sarcasm and ridicule every day, it would be better to just not come anymore. She couldn't stand it. Ming reached out with his uninjured hand. "Let's move out. Let's go back to my apartment. We'll live together. I can't take good care of you, Ming." She didn't have that right now and Qiao Ziqing wouldn't allow it. "I want to be with you and no one can stop me." Ming held his hand up, waiting for her to hold it. Looking at his hand, Lily gently pressed his hand down and said, "Let's eat." However, it was this small movement that made Ming's heart suddenly turn cold. She did not hold his hand. Has it begun? She was impatient and disdainful. Had she thought it through? Did she not want to live with him, a blind man? Did she not want to marry a blind man? Ming's heart felt like it was being crushed by a big stone. It was terribly heavy. Yu Lily noticed the slight change in Ming's mood, and her eyes darkened. She immediately picked up the bowl and chopsticks to feed him. Throughout the meal, neither of them spoke a word. After eating, Yu Lily packed up the food and sent it to the kitchen to wash and dry. When she went upstairs, she found that the door was locked. Yu Lily couldn't open the door and was stunned. She reached out and patted him, calling out tentatively, "Ming?" No response. Ming leaned against the sofa and closed his eyes. He listened to the sounds coming from outside, indifferent. The knocking on the door became more and more urgent, and Yu Lily's voice became more and more anxious. "Ming, what are you doing inside? Open the door." When Ming heard this, he suddenly felt that it was ridiculous. What did that mean? Afraid that he would die? Afraid that he would commit suicide? Laughing at himself, Ming clearly felt that his eyes were wet and hot. In the eyes of others, he was so weak. So pitiful. Even if he was blind or disabled, as long as he wasn't dead, he wasn't finished. But why were all the people around her like this? His mother was like that, and so was Yu Lily. All of them sympathized with him and treated him like a cripple. She was clearly so unwilling, so why did she still come? It was only because he was crippled and threatened them by not eating. That was all, right? Sadly, Ming realized that apart from being disabled, he didn't have any other weapons. "Enough," Ming said. His voice was not loud, but it was just loud enough for the people outside to hear. "You can go back. I'll rest for a while." Yu Lily's heart ached. She knocked on the door again and panicked. Chapter 1154. Yu Lily heard that something was wrong with Ming. Her heart was squeezed tightly and she couldn't breathe. Yu Lily withdrew her hand and didn't knock on the door again. Looking at the door in front of her, Yu Lily took a step back and leaned against the railing on the second floor. Qiao Ziqing saw Yu Lily leaning against the railing and asked, "What's wrong?" Yu Lily turned her head and shook her head. Then a white light flashed in her mind and she went forward to knock on the door and said, "Ming, if you want me to leave, you have to let me pick up my things. My bag is still inside." When Ming heard that, he fumbled for her bag on the sofa. Soon he found it, picked up the shoulder strap and groped his way to the door. His footsteps were not big and every step was very slow. When he opened the door, Ming reached out and was about to hand her the bag, but no one reached out to take it. Yu Lily looked at his empty eyes and her eyes were sad. Yu Lily stepped forward and wrapped her arms around his waist. Ming was shocked. Obviously, he didn't expect that Yu Lily would do such a thing. "What's wrong? You just finished eating and you have to be in a good mood. How can you be so bad?" Yu Lily gently leaned on his chest and her voice softened. "You didn't take a bath or wipe yourself yesterday. I'll help you take a bath and wipe yourself, okay?" Her voice was soft and every word was extremely gentle. But this was not Yu Lily. His little carp would not talk to him in such a tone as if she was coaxing a child. And she would not be so inexplicably gentle to him. That was the difference. Their attitudes clearly told him this cruel fact. He was disabled. Gently pushing her away, Ming said without any expression, "Go back." As he spoke, he handed Yu Lily's bag forward and said, "I'm sleepy and I want to sleep." "Didn't you sleep well last night?" Yu Lily did not let go and gently pushed him in. "I'll go with you." I said no. Ming's tone suddenly changed, and there was impatience in his anger. "Are you going or not?" Yu Lily was stunned by his roar. Looking at him, she couldn't believe it. "Ming, do you really want me to go?" "Let's go." Another shout rang out. Indistinctly, anger surged. Yu Lily pursed her lips and looked at him. Her breathing gradually became faster. She took the bag from his hand and said in a low voice, "I got it. I'll leave now." Ming's heart was in so much pain that he was hysterical. It was as if someone had taken a knife and pried it open. Blood gushed out violently and everything inside was blurred by the blood. Ming took a step forward, but he quickly stopped. Yu Lily didn't notice his subtle movements. She turned her body slightly and said, "I'll come again when you're in a better mood." After entering the room, he slammed the door fiercely, making a loud noise. Sorrow, accompanied by such a loud noise, came surging. Tears welled up in her eyes, blurring everything. Chapter 1155. Qiao Ziqing's attention was soon attracted by the low sobbing sounds upstairs. Qiao Ziqing heard the noise and walked over. When Yu Lily heard the movement, she quickly wiped her face and stood up. Qiao Ziqing happened to see Yu Lily squatting by the wall and sobbing. She looked at her face, which had turned pink from all the crying, and frowned. "What's wrong?" Why are you crying? I'm fine. Yu Lily wiped her face and forced a smile. Auntie, Ming might not be in a good mood. Can I stay here? Stay outside? Qiao Ziqing frowned. When she saw Yu Lily's request, she felt even more uncomfortable. What did that mean? Can I stay here? Does that mean that Yu Lily is worried that I won't even let her stay in the corner? Qiao Ziqing understood what was going on and felt extremely displeased. Qiao Ziqing gave Yu Lily a look. She didn't object or agree. She walked toward Ming's room. He gently knocked on the door and shouted, "Son, are you inside? Open the door." There was no immediate response from inside. Yu Lily was also looking forward to the person inside to reply. After about 10 seconds, Ming said, "Mom, I'll be alone for a while. Don't come in." Are you in a bad mood? Why don't you tell Mommy about it? Maybe she'll be in a better mood? Qiao Ziqing was clearly unwilling to give up. One had to know that she had scolded this woman several times. Every time she didn't get any benefit from it. But now, Ming could make this stubborn girl cry like this. What had he done? Furthermore, Ming was usually so protective of this woman. How could he bear to let her cry like this? There's something wrong with him. It's okay. I'm tired. I'm going to sleep, Ming said. His voice was a little gloomy. Other than being in a bad mood, there was no other emotion in his voice. When Qiao Ziqing heard that, she had no choice but to give up. She turned to look at Yu Lily and said, "Come down and talk." Yu Lily looked at Qiao Ziqing and felt a little uneasy. When they went downstairs, Qiao Ziqing made a cup of tea for Yu Lily and asked, "Did you quarrel with Ming?" She took the tea and shook her head. What's going on? Yu Lily also wanted to ask what was going on. Even Yu Lily couldn't figure out why Ming had suddenly treated her that way. The tears that she had suppressed with great difficulty suddenly gushed out again. Yu Lily took a deep breath and tried to make herself look refreshed. She said, "It's probably because Ming wants to be alone for a while. He's in a bad mood, but thankfully he just finished eating." When Qiao Ziqing saw Yu Lily in this state, no matter how much she disliked her, she couldn't help feeling a little sad. She looked at Yu Lily with disdain and said, "Why are you crying when you're so ugly? My son isn't dead yet. Since my son has chased you out, you should go back first. When he comes looking for you again, I'll call you over." Chapter 1156. Yu Lily quickly got up and went to Ming's door without even taking a sip of tea. Qiao Ziqing just glanced at her and went out on her own. However, Yu Lily stayed there for more than an hour. During this time, Ming didn't come out. Yu Lily stood at the door, her mind blank. Suddenly, her phone vibrated and rang. It was a text message. Yu Lily opened the text message. It was from Ming. A text message from Ming? A string of numbers. 985454966363367468822. What does it mean? Yu Lily looked at it for a long time, but she didn't know what it meant. She called Ming. Through the door she heard the ringtone. It was very soft. Yu Lily listened to the ringtone, waiting for Ming to pick up. But no matter how many times she called, Ming didn't pick up. Feeling a little frustrated, Yu Lily stood in the same place and didn't move. All of a sudden the door opened. Yu Lily was happy. She was about to go up and call him, but then she immediately shut her mouth and didn't dare to move. What does he want to do? Ming walked out and shouted, "Mom, next time Yu Lily comes, don't let her in." Yu Lily's heart jumped when she heard that. What does Ming mean? Don't let her in? Then who was it that had been sticking to her these past few days, wanting her to accompany him? Ming didn't seem to notice that there was another person not far away. He shouted, "Mom, are you there?" No one answered. Ming turned and walked back in. Just as he was about to close the door, Yu Lily went up and pushed the door open. Ming paused and said, "You haven't left yet?" "What? What do you mean by asking your mom not to let me in? Didn't you hear it? Why are you asking?" Ming pretended to close the door. Although his eyes were empty and his arm was in a cast, his strength was no less than Yu Lily's. "Why, Ming, what do you mean? I just sent you a message. Didn't you see it?" A message? Yu Lily was stunned and thought of the pile of numbers. It was highly likely that Ming had pressed the wrong key and changed the keyboard to numeric. Ming responded calmly. He didn't feel that anything was wrong. Yu Lily didn't dare say that he had actually sent a bunch of numbers. She played dumb and said, "I didn't look at it. I'll check it out later." Ming was used to typing 9 on his phone's keyboard. Yu Lily only needed to type the numbers to know what they meant. "Then you can go back first." Ming slammed the door hard, but he couldn't close it. Yu Lily used all her strength to resist and shouted, "Why are you chasing me away? Did I do something wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. I was the one who was wrong. Ming thought to himself, but he couldn't say it out loud. Or, did I say something that made you unhappy? Tell me, okay? Why are you suddenly in a bad mood? Why are you suddenly chasing me away? Ming, you're already like this. Don't be angry with me, okay? What do you mean I'm already like this? Ming loosened his grip and his face darkened. I'm disabled and blind, so I don't even have the right to be angry, right? No. Lily said. Then what do you mean? Do you think that I should beg you to be with me? I don't care. Lily, go away. I don't want to see or hear you. Ming's face was only gloomy and emotionless. Lily looked at him and knew that his mood must be terrible. Otherwise he wouldn't have said such things. Chapter 1157. Lily stopped moving, but she did not retreat. Looking at Ming in front of her, Lily's eyes were filled with compassion and regret that Ming couldn't see. Ming, it's not that you begged me to be with you, but that I can't leave you. Have you forgotten what I said? I must marry you and you must marry me, isn't that right? Lily took a step forward and grabbed his hand. In her voice there was a bit of pleading. You promised me. Do you want to break your promise now? I know you are in a bad mood, but don't say such things in the future, okay? Although she knew that he was unhappy because of his misfortune, hearing such words still made Lily's heart hurt. It hurt a lot. Such a feeling was more hurtful than any of Qiao Ziqing's words. The pain of a lover was far deeper, more turbulent, and more painful than that of an unrelated person. Ming clearly felt the emotions coming from Lily. He held her with his hand and his chest was slightly trembling. Why would he want to say something like that? But when he thought of the possibility that he would never recover his eyesight, and Qiao Ziqing's deep misunderstanding of him and Lily, Ming's heart was indescribably sad. Ming pushed her away with a backhand. He didn't say anything, but his hand was very strong. Lily was caught off guard when she was pushed. He slammed the door shut and locked it from the inside. Ming, open the door. Lily was inexplicably flustered. Everything was fine just now. What suddenly happened? Didn't he eat when they first arrived? Why did he suddenly change? Lily slammed the door and shouted, Ming, open the door. Tell me clearly, what do you mean? Does it mean that he doesn't want to marry me? Does it mean that he doesn't want to answer? Why didn't he say it clearly? Lily didn't understand, but looking at the tightly closed door in front of her, the panic in her heart became more and more rampant. Go and check the message. In the future, let's not see each other. Ming's words came through the door. It was muffled but very clear. Lily heard his words clearly. She quickly picked up the phone and looked at the string of numbers. She typed it out according to the numbers. 9 key pinyin 985454966363367468222. After Lily punched out, her heart was even more shocked. Lily, let's break up. Sender, Bicho, go take a look at the messages. In the future, let's not meet again. What Ming had just said rang in her mind. Lily held the phone and looked at the words that automatically came to mind. She couldn't believe it. How could this be? How could this be? Ming told her to break up. How could this be? How could this be? Ming, what do you mean by this? I don't understand. Open the door and explain it to me. Open the door. What do you mean? Ming, what do you mean by this? Come out and explain it to me. Open the door. Open the door. Chapter 1158. She saw it and she understood it. That's all right. Ming got up from the ground, walked to the bed and slowly sat down. Outside, Lily's voice was getting louder and louder. At the same time, it was getting crazier and more hysterical. In the end, the sound of Lily hitting the door was getting softer and softer, and the original voice had collapsed into sobs. Ming leaned against the bed and bit his lower lip, trying not to make a sound. Tears flowed down from the corner of his eyes, and the salty taste, with the smell of weakness, was so strong that it was embarrassing. That's it. Ming's head was getting dizzier, and he fell asleep on the bed. Even Ming himself didn't know how long he had been sleeping. Because he couldn't see, he couldn't even tell the difference between day and night. Standing up, Ming felt a throbbing pain in his arm. Gently stroking it, Ming stood up and opened the door. Outside it was quiet. Lily was gone. In order to be able to see Lily at any time, Shinjilia took the old lady to a coffee shop downstairs in the neighborhood where Lily lived. People could be seen coming and going at any time. Kingstown was a first-tier city. Basically, at this time of the year, the whole city could be called an empty city. Old Mrs. Shun leaned on the table and stared outside, for fear of missing Lily's arrival. Shinjilia sat opposite the old lady playing a game on his phone. The killing game kept coming and Shinjilia was very excited. Suddenly the old lady stood up and shouted, "Lily, Lily is back." With that, she didn't give Shinjilia any time to recover from his shock. She quickly ran out of the room. Shinjilia quickly turned off the game, caught up with her and shouted, "Grandma, Lily won't come back at this time. You'd better sit here quietly. When Lily comes back, maybe she'll think you've done a good job and spend more time with you alone." However, Shinjilia's words didn't work. The old lady walked faster like an old child and happily shouted, "Lily, you're back?" Lily hadn't expected the old lady to appear in front of her so quickly. She rubbed her eyes and tried her best to look natural as she asked, "Old Mrs. Shun, what are you doing here?" When old Mrs. Shun heard this form of address, she was unhappy and said, "What old lady? Can you call me Grandma? I've been waiting for you here for a long time. Shall we go eat Thai food now?" "You guys didn't eat lunch?" "No," Shinjilia replied. He sounded a little helpless. "Grandma said that she had to wait for you to go with her. So we settled around here in the afternoon." As he spoke, he noticed that Lily's eyes were visibly red and swollen. Shinjilia wasn't the only one who saw through it. Even old Mrs. Shun, who had always behaved like a child in front of Lily, acted as if she hadn't seen it. She walked up to Lily affectionately and took her arm. "Shall we go now?" Chapter 1159. Lily nodded as the old lady held her arm affectionately. His red and swollen eyes looked a little miserable at this moment. Lily reached out to press her eyes, but old Mrs. Shun pulled her hand away. She rebuked, "You can't rub your eyes if they are uncomfortable. The more you rub them, the more uncomfortable they will be. It's better to wear glasses when the wind is strong." As he spoke, he slowly stretched out his hand toward Shinjilia and said, "Old man glasses." Shinjilia hurriedly took out a pair of sunglasses from the bag he was carrying, arched his back, and jumped onto it with small steps. In a shrill voice he said, "Your Highness, the glasses have arrived." His appearance was extremely comical. Old Mrs. Shin laughed and took the glasses. When she looked at Lily, she realized that she wasn't smiling like she was. "Here, this is for you." Old Mrs. Shin pushed it toward Lily. "Put it on. It'll protect you from the wind." Lily's heart warmed. She didn't even have to look to know that her eyes were swollen. She didn't stand on ceremony. She took the glasses from old Mrs. Shin and thanked her before leading old Mrs. Shin and Shinjilia toward the mall ahead. When they arrived at the Thai restaurant, a girl in traditional Thai clothes came out to welcome the guests. She put her palms together and said to them, "Savatika." Old Mrs. Shin also bowed to her and said, "Sawadika." Even the waitress couldn't help but laugh as she led them into a private room. After ordering, old Mrs. Shun looked a little excited. She looked at Lily and said, "Lily, this is the first time I've been to a Thai restaurant in Kingstown. I heard that Kingstown is close to Thailand. Why don't we go to Thailand together?" When Shinjilia heard that, he couldn't help but make things difficult for her. He coughed lightly and said, "Grandma, we didn't bring our passports. Ask your brother to send it over. The delivery service is not open." When the old lady heard that, she was displeased. She turned to glare at Shinjilia and said, "Go back and get it. I'll wait for you in Kingstown." "That's not a good idea. You'll fall apart if you keep running around," Shinjilia exclaimed. "I don't care. In any case, I'm going to Thailand with Lily. Hurry up and get me my passport." Old Mrs. Shin had her arms akimbo. She was being unreasonable. "Who asked you to be my grandson?" Shinjilia was speechless. "Are you sure this isn't a curse?" But when he thought about it carefully, it didn't seem to be wrong. Shinjilia frowned, but when he turned his head, he saw that Lily's lips were slightly raised. Shinjilia felt slightly relieved, but then he said unhappily, "Even if I'm your grandson, you can't mistreat me like this. Am I still your biological son? I didn't give birth to you in the first place." The old lady didn't find anything wrong with that. She looked at Lily and asked, "Lily, do you want to go?" If they went, the youngest would go to the capital. The journey there would take 3 hours and the round trip would only take 6 hours. Even if he takes 3 hours to travel to and from the airport, that's only 9 hours. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon now, so he should be back by midnight. When Shinjilia heard that, he exploded and yelled, "Grandma! My dear grandma! Are you trying to kill your grandson? What, you don't want to go?" I don't want to, of course I don't. Such an arduous task was not something that just anyone could accomplish. But Chapter 1160. It doesn't matter. Leave it to me. You can go. Lily's lips curled up slightly, but her sunglasses were still on. Seeing the smile on Yu Lily's face, Shinjilia and old Mrs. Shen both breathed a sigh of relief. Shinjilia immediately pretended to be unhappy and shouted, "Hey, my grandmother is bullying me and you're bullying me too, right?" "What?" Old Mrs. Shen glared at him. "Call me Yu Lily." Shinjilia turned his head and shrank his neck when he heard the old lady's words. He picked up his glass and took a sip. Seeing Shinjilia's behavior, Yu Lily's smile became even wider. An indescribable feeling spread through her. Her heart felt warm, but it also felt like a feather was gently tickling it. It was so comfortable that she couldn't help but want to reject it. This was the first time she had eaten with someone other than Ming and her colleagues, especially on such a special day. It was a wonderful feeling. The dishes were quickly served and old Mrs. Shen quickly began to eat. Although old Mrs. Shen was not young, her appetite was still very good. Yu Lily had eaten not long ago, but she didn't eat much. Shinjilia had also eaten most of the food for old Mrs. Shen. This was after Shinjilia had stopped her several times. Otherwise, Yu Lily would have suspected that the old lady would have eaten even more. After eating, Shinjilia paid the bill. Old Mrs. Shen had accidentally eaten too much and needed a walk to digest her food. She took Yu Lily with her and walked around the mall. Big malls didn't close during the New Year, so there were still a lot of things to shop. However, the New Year still had the atmosphere of the New Year. The same song, Winter Jasmine, was played everywhere. As he walked with the old lady, she became more and more interested in the song. She even shouted at the top of her lungs, "Love a winter jasmine, flowers bloom everywhere." Many shop assistants looked over and Shinjilia quickly hid in the side. Yu Lily was pulled by the old lady and shouted at the top of her lungs. As she walked, she turned to look at Yu Lily with a big smile on her face. Shinjilia covered his face and hid in the side. When he looked over, he found that Yu Lily was also smiling at his grandmother. It seemed that she was no longer as impatient as she was at noon. Shinjilia's heart calmed down a little, and there was a look of relief in his eyes. Although he didn't know why his grandmother liked Yu Lily so much, he had to admit that Yu Lily was a very good girl. It was a pity for such a girl to be with a scumbag like Ming. Old Mrs. Shen sang loudly all the way. Many people watched her as she pulled Yu Lily along. Suddenly, the old lady stopped and turned to look at Shinjilia. She shouted, "Shinjilia, why are you hiding so far away? Is it embarrassing for Grandma?" Shinjilia was stunned. He quickly covered his face as everyone looked at him. He groaned in his heart. "Oh my God." Chapter 1161. When old Mrs. Shen heard that, she felt a little proud. When she turned to look at Yu Lily, her eyes were full of pride. "Am I very powerful?" Yu Lily pursed her lips and nodded. "Very powerful." Old Mrs. Shen was even more proud. She laughed and chased after Shinjilia. Shinjilia, who was in front, was secretly shocked. He shouted, "Grandma, slow down. Do you want to die?" When old Mrs. Shen heard that, she was unhappy and shouted, "What do you mean?" Shinjilia cried bitterly in his heart, and his expression immediately changed. With an apologetic look on his face, he stepped forward and said, "Grandma, I was wrong." Old Mrs. Shen glared at him and reached out to pull his ear up. "What did you do wrong?" "Everything is wrong." Shinjilia admitted defeat. Especially after seeing Yu Lily's faint smile, he became even more terrified. He cried out in pain, "It hurts, it hurts." More and more people were watching. Shinjilia covered his face in shame. "Ah, Grandma, let's go. I'll take you somewhere else to play." Yu Lily removed old Mrs. Shen's hand. After helping Shinjilia out, she took the old lady's hand and walked forward. When old Mrs. Shen heard that, she was very happy. She nodded and took Yu Lily's arm affectionately. She strode forward. Just like that, a few hours passed. Although old Mrs. Shen was physically strong, she was old. At about 7 or 8 o'clock, Shinjilia forced the old lady to go back. Naturally, the old lady was very reluctant. In the end, Yu Lily persuaded her to go back. Shinjilia and the old lady took Yu Lily to the hotel. It was a famous 5-star hotel in Kingstown. Shinjilia had booked a suite with 2 rooms. Just as Shinjilia asked the old lady to take a shower, old Mrs. Shen seemed to be afraid that Yu Lily would go back on her word. She hugged Yu Lily's arm and said with a pair of old eyes, "Lily, you said you would sleep with me tonight." Yu Lily smiled and said, "Well, I won't go back on my word." Old Mrs. Shen was relieved and went to take a shower. However, Yu Lily didn't bring any clothes. She was temporarily wearing a hotel bathrobe. When he came out, the old lady was sitting on the bed, holding a tablet and playing a popular game. It was simple yet not so simple, comparable to Tetris. Yu Lily leaned over to take a look. Old Mrs. Shun extended the tablet toward her and said, "Come on, let's play together." Eulili chuckled and pushed it back. She looked at old Mrs. Shun, deliberated over her words and said, "Actually, Grandma, I wanted to ask you from the very beginning. Can you answer this question for me?" "What?" Old Mrs. Shun lowered her head and blinked at Eulili. Eulili felt that the old man was a little cute and asked, "Why do you like me so much?" "My attitude toward you has never been very friendly. You saved me," old Mrs. Shun said without hesitation. She looked at Eulili and said mysteriously, "To tell you the truth, I can see a person's fortune." Chapter 1162. Ever since our old man died, I feel like I've become half a god. When I look at others, if I get along well with them, I can see a layer of fog above their heads. As old Mrs. Shun spoke, she looked at the top of Eulili's head. Above everyone's head, there will be a ball of luck that belongs to them. Within this ball of luck there will be bad luck, good luck, and bad luck. There will always be many storms in one's life, and only in the end can one comfortably welcome the rainbow. Old Mrs. Shun had a smile on her face, but at that moment she looked different from how she had looked during the day. She was kind and the wrinkles on her face folded up. She reached out and gently patted her hand. "From the first time I saw you, I knew that you were destined to be with me. Lily, your luck compliments mine. When I first saw you, I felt that you were very likely to be my long-lost granddaughter." Eulili blushed with shame. She smiled and asked, "Isn't it Shun Manting? That child was also destined to be with our family? As for what kind of fate I couldn't tell, so I simply brought her home. Who knew she would have such a fate with Shun Luoan? What a sin." Although that was what she said, old Mrs. Shun wasn't really that angry. She had expected it, so it was normal for there to be some discrepancies. The Shun family was also a prestigious family in the capital. Shun Manting was an orphan. Given such an opportunity to climb the social ladder, she did not hesitate to follow her and even became friends with her. She had thought that Eulili would be easy to deal with. Who knew that this girl would hate her so much? Eulili's attitude was far beyond old Mrs. Shun's expectations. Her desire to bring her home was aroused. However, it was also during this time that she became more aware of Eulili's extraordinary qualities. This girl's life was like a spring. The more pain she could endure, the more happiness she could obtain. The more she was suppressed now, the more she would rebound in the future. In the past, her life was cheap, and in the future, it would be priceless. "I don't match your lost granddaughter's age. I don't think it can't be that granddaughter, right?" Rumor had it that old Mrs. Shun was very harsh toward Yi Chanchan's younger sister. If she really became their granddaughter, would she? Old Mrs. Shun didn't notice Eulili's worry. She patted her hand and said, "You and I are fated. Regardless of whether we are related by blood or not, I am willing to be friends with you." As she spoke, she quietly looked around and whispered, "Lily, what do you think of our grandson?" This grandson was, of course, referring to Shinjilia. Eulili was speechless. Thinking of Shinjilia's sloppy appearance, she shook her head and said, "Grandma, don't try to match me up. I'm not interested in Shinjilia." "What a pity." Old Mrs. Shun patted her hand. "I really don't know what's so good about that old guy. You like him, and my disappointing granddaughter insisted on marrying him. Now I heard that he got into a car accident. What's his situation now?" Hearing that, Eulili's eyes dimmed slightly. "Is it serious?" When he saw Eulili in the afternoon, she seemed to be crying a lot. From the look of it, he could tell that Ken was seriously injured. Chapter 1163. After old Mrs. Shun said that, she felt like she had asked too many questions. She couldn't even see. Of course it was serious. It will all pass. That boy is also a blessed man. Eulili forced a smile and didn't say anything. The old lady had played the whole day and taken a plane here. She was already very tired. At that moment she didn't talk to Eulili and fell asleep unknowingly. The old lady had a regular schedule. She woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning. When she woke up, Eulili was sleeping soundly. Her face was buried under her arms, and her hair covered most of her face. The old lady turned to look at Eulili. She looked at Eulili's slightly curled up sleeping position. At that moment she was curled up in the corner of the bed, looking like a child who lacked a sense of security. It was also at that moment that the old lady strongly remembered that she was an orphan. An orphan who grew up without parents. An orphan who was abandoned when she was born. An orphan who couldn't find her parents. The feeling of loneliness could be felt from her sleeping position. The old lady had never been an emotional person, but at that moment, when she felt this inexplicable atmosphere, she couldn't help but feel a lump in her throat. The old lady looked at Eulili for a while. Suddenly she opened her eyes with a thump. Seeing that old Mrs. Shun was looking at her, Yu Lily remembered where she was. She smiled and said, "Grandma, good morning." "Morning. Did you have a nightmare?" Old Mrs. Shun looked at her kindly. When she saw the tears on her face, her heart ached even more. She reached out and patted her gently on the arm with a slight smile on her face. Yu Lily smiled and wiped the tears on her face. She climbed up and said, "Sort of." Yu Lily's eyes looked much more swollen than yesterday. Coupled with the dried water stains on her face, it wasn't difficult to imagine what kind of dream she had. "What sad dream did you have? Tell me about it." Old Mrs. Shun's voice was soft and slow. It sounded full of love. At the same time, her old and dry hand had already gently touched the ends of Yu Lily's hair. The old lady in front of her was obviously old. Her back was slightly bent, and her face was layered with wrinkles. But at that moment she gave Yu Lily the warmth of an elder that she had never felt before. Other than O Ming, this was the first person who had spoken to her like this. Yu Lily felt a surge of anger in her chest and she couldn't control it. Her throat was choked with pain and tears flowed down. "What's wrong?" Old Mrs. Shun frowned and looked at Yu Lily with sadness in her eyes. Yu Lily couldn't help but burst into tears. She gently hugged the old man and smelled the unique smell of the old man's metabolism. A place in her heart that had been empty for many years suddenly seemed to be filled. Yu Lily was sobbing uncontrollably. Old Mrs. Shun stopped asking. She hugged her gently and gave her silent comfort. "Thank you, Grandma. Did Oming bully you?" Old Mrs. Shun patted Yi Chanchan's back gently and said softly, "It just so happens that Grandma hasn't visited them in a long time. Why don't you take Grandma over there and have a seat? Go to the O clan?" Chapter 1165. Qiao Ziqing and her husband looked at each other and saw the confusion in each other's eyes. When did Yu Lily become the granddaughter of the Shen family? They hadn't heard anything about it before. Furthermore, Qiao Ziqing had heard a little about how difficult the old lady was to deal with. She had even heard that she had some mental problems. Her mind was often muddled and she was always spouting nonsense. Furthermore, her mood was erratic and unpredictable. If you made her unhappy in any way, the old lady would flip out at the drop of a hat. Even Shen Manting was often at a loss for what to do with the old lady's erratic personality. How did Yu Lily end up with the old lady? Old Mrs. Shen ignored their astonishment. She turned around and walked over to Yu Lily. She held her arm affectionately and walked toward the living room of the O residence with a smile. Qiao Ziqing was even more stunned when she saw the scene. In the 4 years that Shen Manting had been engaged to O Ming, the old lady had come over once or twice, but she had always brought her granddaughter in with the attitude of an elder to discuss marriage and other matters. She was stingy with a smile, let alone holding Shen Manting's hand as they walked in. "Oh, how did Yu Lily deal with this old lady?" Yu Lily felt goosebumps rise under Qiao Ziqing's stare. She looked up and smiled sheepishly. The old lady didn't care. Under the gaze of Qiao Ziqing and O Huajin, she swaggered over to the sofa and sat down. "Sister Yang, bring me the Jin Junmei tea that I brought back before the new year," O Huajin shouted into the room. "All right." Sister Yang quickly brought the tea over. The way she looked at Yu Lily was also a little strange. A few days ago, Sister Yang had been on leave and hadn't seen Yu Lily, but she was no stranger to the old lady. Now that she saw this unfamiliar granddaughter, she couldn't help but take a second look. Faced with all the strange gazes around her, Yu Lily felt like she was sitting on pins and needles. She felt a little uncomfortable. Everyone had their own thoughts. Qiao Ziqing sat down in front of them and handed old Mrs. Shen some snacks with a smile. She asked, "Why does Grandma have time to come over today? It's the new year. Is everything peaceful in the capital?" The implication was, "Your family still has a mess to deal with, so why did you come to my house?" Old Mrs. Shen had lived for a long time. How could she not understand? She snorted and said, "I heard that your son got into a car accident, so I asked my granddaughter to bring me here to take a look. After all, we used to be in-laws. I don't want people to say that I'm cold. I came here just to hang out with Lily, but I didn't even stop by to take a look." When Qiao Ziqing heard that, she looked at Yu Lily even more. "Is he here to look for Yu Lily?" In that case, Yu Lily and the old lady had known each other for a long time. Chapter 1166. When Yu Lily heard that, she knew that the words were directed at her. Looking down at the table, Yu Lily subconsciously clasped her hands together. "He's eating well and sleeping soundly. He's in good shape. Shouldn't I be happy to hear that?" But, for some reason, Yu Lily felt an indescribable pain in her heart. So, after breaking up with me he will be in better shape? How is that possible? Yu Lily didn't believe it. But, she saw Qiao Ziqing's relaxed expression. She didn't seem worried about her son at all. Instead she looked very relaxed and happy. Old Mrs. Shen looked at her and said, "Is that so? That's great. I was worried that something would happen to your son. After all, the engagement between your family and mine hasn't been cancelled. In the future our families will become in-laws. I don't want my granddaughter to marry a cripple." Her words were so direct that it was embarrassing. Yu Lily felt as if a knife had cut into her heart. In that moment she suddenly felt that everything around her had nothing to do with her. The engagement between Xin Manting and Ming hasn't been cancelled. So, their engagement hasn't been cancelled? After what happened between Xin Manting and Xin Luo, their engagement hasn't been cancelled. Yu Lily found it hard to believe. But, looking at the expressions of Qiao Ziqing and Huojin, she knew. It was true. Qiao Ziqing was a little embarrassed and said, "Grandma, how can you say that? Our son. Is your son really a cripple?" Old Mrs. Shen looked at her and asked sharply. Qiao Ziqing's words were stuck in her throat. She didn't know whether to say yes or no. Ming's condition was indeed not good. Not only was he blind, but his hand was also fractured. But how could his parents accept the word cripple? When Yu Lily saw that, she quietly reached out and tugged on old Mrs. Shen's sleeve. In a low voice she said, "Grandma, Ming is fine." "What do you mean by fine? Is it really as you said? You can't see?" Old Mrs. Shen didn't have the slightest intention of hiding her voice. "Isn't he blind? What's the difference between that and a cripple? Our granddaughter can't marry someone like that." Old Mrs. Shen. A young man's voice came from the second floor. This voice was cold and displeased, and it made one's heart tremble. Yu Lily's heart fluttered. She looked in the direction of the voice and saw Ming in his pajamas. At that moment, Ming's hand was in a cast hanging from his neck. His eyes were looking straight ahead. He looked empty and lifeless like a puppet. "If you have come to see if I am crippled, you have seen it. I am blind and crippled, as you know. You may go back. As for Xin Manting, what gave her the confidence to believe that I would marry a woman like you, who has ruined our family's reputation? Ming can't afford to be cuckolded by my brother." Yu Lily hadn't said a word since she entered the house. Ming knew that old Mrs. Shen hadn't come alone. When he heard her call herself their granddaughter, he naturally assumed that the person who had come was Xin Manting. Chapter 1167. Please go back. It's the new year and no one will be happy if things go sour. As she spoke, she groped her way downstairs. Such a scene was shocking to the eye. Qiao Ziqing immediately stood up and wanted to walk in Ming's direction, but she was one step too late. Yu Lily's footsteps were fast as she ran in that direction. Ming couldn't see, but he could vaguely guess who it was from the sound of her footsteps. Just as Yu Lily was about to reach him, Ming stopped. "Why are you here?" Ming asked. It was obvious that he had recognized Yu Lily. Qiao Ziqing and Huojin looked at each other and saw different emotions in each other's eyes. Old Mrs. Shen was still sitting on the sofa, drinking tea calmly. She looked at Yu Lily on the second floor with a look of admiration in her eyes. "Brave. Not bad." Yu Lily didn't say anything. She walked up to him and grabbed his uninjured arm without a word and pulled him forward. Ming's footsteps were frozen in place. He didn't move an inch. "I thought I made it clear yesterday that we broke up. Yu Lily, what's the point of doing this?" He didn't wait for Yu Lily to speak before he turned to the side and shouted, "Mom, didn't we agree not to let her in?" Hearing that, Qiao Ziqing's heart was filled with doubt. Could Ming be serious? Ming didn't look like he was faking it. Why did he suddenly break up? Qiao Ziqing wasn't the only one who was curious. Even Yu Lily herself was baffled. "Ming!" Yu Lily shouted. "Why are you saying something like that for no reason? You have to give me a reason. I didn't meet you yesterday, so don't even think of escaping today. You have to give me an explanation or I won't leave." Yes, for no reason. No one would be willing to accept such a situation. Even Ming himself wouldn't easily accept such a sudden breakup. Could he tell her that he had thought it through and didn't want to hold her up any longer? Could he tell her that he didn't want her to be a cripple for the rest of her life, and that she should find another way out and find another man? If he said that, Yu Lily would be even more unwilling to break up with him. Ming knew her very well. Yu Lily was a good girl, and it was precisely because of this that he could not delay her. It was very likely that he would be like this for the rest of his life, blind, forever in need of others to take care of him, unable to work, becoming a burden to his family and his parents, forever living in darkness, never to see the light of day. Furthermore, Qiao Ziqing's opinion of Yu Lili was huge. It wasn't something that could be changed overnight. He couldn't afford it and he didn't want Yu Lili to compromise because of him. Hearing Yu Lili's words, Ming's heart tightened. He wanted to pull his hand back, but Yu Lili's hands were holding him tightly. Ming couldn't push her away with just one hand. He simply let her hug him and said coldly, "A man doesn't want a woman who is greedy for money and vanity. Isn't that a reason?" Yu Lili felt a stab in her heart. She looked at Ming in disbelief. "Are you talking about me? Is there someone else besides you?" Old Mrs. Shen looked at him and laughed mirthlessly. "If you treat me to a meal, I'm afraid my lifespan will be shortened." With that, she pulled Yu Lili to open the door of the taxi and said, "Lily, let's go." Before Yu Lili had time to digest the relationship between them, old Mrs. Shen had already pulled her into the car. Yu Lili turned her head and smiled at Wen Fenglin. She looked apologetic. The old lady got the driver to drive off. Wen Fenglin watched as the taxi drove away. His eyes were cold and desolate. Chapter 1170. The taxi quickly disappeared. When Fenglin turned and walked back to the O residence. He pressed the doorbell, but it took a long time for the person inside to open the door. The person who opened the door was Qiao Ziqing. Her eyes were red and she looked very sad. When she saw Wen Fenglin, she started yelling, "You said that Yu Lili was a good child. Do you know what that woman did? She hit my son. She made my son's face bleed. You and old O must be blind. This kind of woman." Sob sob. He couldn't continue and said, "We must hurry and persuade Xiao to go to the hospital. He lost so much blood, I hope he doesn't get sick from the beating." She quickly led Wen Fenglin up to the second floor. When they got there, they realized that the door was locked from the inside. Qiao Ziqing knocked on the door, but there was no response. Inside, Ming was lying on the bed. Huijin was looking at him from the side. His gaze was deep. His eyes were the same as Ming's, and they carried a penetrating sharpness. He looked at his son on the bed and said meaningfully, "You've grown up. There are many things that parents shouldn't interfere with, but what you did today was too much. You were the one who provoked her, and now you're the one who insulted her. Why did you do that?" Ming didn't open his eyes when he heard that. In a muffled voice he said, "You don't like her, do you? Now that I've broken up with her, shouldn't you be happy? That's the only reason? I thought you said that to chase her away because you didn't want to hold up this child's future." When Huijin said that, he kept his eyes on Ming. Indeed, when he saw Ming's desolate expression, he knew he was right. The child's temperament was like his. Huijin had probably thought it through. However, even if it was him, it was impossible for him to say such hurtful words. Just as Yu Lili had said, it would be difficult to salvage the situation in the future. This child really didn't leave any way out for himself. "You'll regret it," Huijin said bluntly. When Ming heard that, the regret in his heart had already swept over the sky and the earth. Yes, he would regret it. Ming was already very, very regretful. But, could he regret it? Was there any room for regret now? Yu Lili was still young, only 25 years old. Such a good girl shouldn't spend the rest of her life on a cripple. Even Ming himself couldn't see a future for him. He couldn't afford to gamble. His head was getting dizzier and dizzier. He felt as if his head was being crushed by something and his cheeks were hot. But Ming didn't dare say it out loud. If he complained that he wasn't feeling well, Qiao Ziqing wouldn't let Yu Lili off. But now Ming couldn't help it. His head hurt, and gradually, everything around him seemed to be getting further and further away. Yu Lili took old Mrs. Shen out for dinner. In front of him, it was as if Yu Lili, dressed in red and smiling like a flower, appeared. Today was the 5th day of the Lunar New Year. 25 years ago today, Kingstown welcomed its rare winter. 25 years ago, it was snowing in Kingstown, a rare occurrence in 100 years. The kind director of the orphanage saved a newborn baby girl and named her Yu Lili. Chapter 1180. In front of her, Shenjulia's bright smile appeared and waved at Yu Lili. Yu Lili glanced at him and was speechless. She turned back and said, "Don't pick the wildflowers on the side of the road." Yi Chanshan burst out laughing and Shenjulia's face fell. He said with some resentment, "How did I become a wildflower? I'm better than many people." "That's right. You're much better than your previous ex-boyfriend. Yi Qianshan snorted. Thinking of the last time she was drunk and lying in the living room all night, she wanted to slap that man. What kind of man is he? He doesn't care about women at all. Doesn't he know how to cherish women? Doesn't he know how to help women back to their rooms? It wasn't easy for her to lie on the cold floor all night. Although the other two colleagues didn't know what kind of person Ming was, Shinjilia was indeed very good. Hearing Yi Qianshan's words, they immediately seconded, "That's right, Lily. Shin is a good person. He is handsome and has good qualifications. What do you want? What does your ex-boyfriend look like? Do you have a picture? His qualifications are definitely not as good as Shin's, right?" Shinjilia was from the capital. If you Lily married Shinjilia, she would definitely become a resident of the capital. Such a thing would start to change fundamentally. If such a good thing happened to them, they would definitely agree without hesitation. Maybe they would force themselves on her and then the rice would be cooked. Then wouldn't it be natural for them to marry him and become a resident of the capital? Although the local residents of Kingstown were also very good, they were still inferior to those in the capital. Yu Lily knew what they were thinking, so she decided to ignore them. Shinjilia quickly said, "Since Lily is back, let's do it this way. There's no need to prepare anything else. Just sit down." That manner, that posture impressively was like that of a male master. Yi Qianshan couldn't help but look at Shinjilia and secretly gave him a thumbs up. Good guy, he's so thick-skinned. I like it. Shinjilia pretended not to see Yi Qianshan's eyes and asked the other two colleagues to sit down. Then he opened the cake box. The cake was huge, huge, huge. Old Mrs. Shin's eyes lit up as she looked at the huge cake. When Yu Lily saw the cake, she was even more stunned. It was a strawberry cake. The whole cake was densely covered with strawberries. Apart from the strawberries, there were also chocolate decorations. It looked very fragrant, very delicious. Shinjilia began to insert and light the candles. There were exactly 25 of them. It seemed that, every year on her birthday, the people around her would change. But none of those years had given her such a warm and pleasant surprise. Even Ming hadn't given her such a feeling. After Shinjilia lit the candles, everyone urged Yu Lily to make a wish.